What's up, everybody? A couple days ago, I gave you guys a link to a poll at poll.schizophrenigamer.com to vote on what you would like to see as the next second awakened monsters in the Dimensional Hole. However, I used a template from the last poll we did, and I just took out the 4 and 5 star monsters, and unintentionally I left out some of the 2 stars because they just weren't already in that template. So that was unintentional. So there's a couple 2 stars off the list. So I kind of feel like, is this poll even valid? But I'm not going to be like, oh, everyone go do another poll just in case you may have wanted these other 2 stars. I'm like, keep in mind that some 2 stars maybe should have been on the list. Like, for example, the Yeti. Maybe people are very excited about the Yeti. Maybe not. People are too excited about the Yetis, but just keep that in mind that a couple of these 2 stars were off the list. But today we're going to go over, I just wanted to disclaim that, right? Because I kind of feel like that's unfair that some of the 2 stars were on the list. Anyway, today we're going to go over the top 5 of each element of the ones that you guys voted for. And then if other ones are really close, we're going to also mention those too. Because some of them are like really close, like top 5, but this one's number 6, but it had like 2 less than the number 5. Anyway, we're gonna go over fire, water, wind, light, dark, all in this video because a lot of them are actually the similar elements. Like, it's pretty consistently, and some of them are like, I didn't know you guys cared so much about some of these monsters. Anyway, let's get it started with fire first. Number 5 on the list for fire units that you guys would like to see second awakening is Sath. Good old Sath. I remember him back in the day. He does continuous damage and disturbs enemies' HP here. This is just an AoE. He doesn't really do much. This is just an extra turn if the enemy dies. He was a unit that people were using back in the day, like 6 years ago. So it's crazy to see. I promise I did not vote for him 247 times. I'm kind of surprised to see that he's actually on this list. But this is number 5 on the list for fire. Another one I was honestly surprised to see on the list, Kayan the Fire Vagabond, 279 votes at number 4 on the fire list. He's a kind of interesting unit. He's got a defense break, he's got attack power break, just single target, and then he has a defense buff for himself and provokes all enemies with an 80% chance. Could you imagine if this is like a 2-turn provoke? And then defense buffs himself and he's got like revenge. It would be kind of similar to how annoying the light paladin is. A little bit. It's only a 1-turn provoke right now, but I'm surprised to see him on the list. 279 votes. There wasn't anything really close to the Grim Reaper though, as far as like a runner-up. Everything else was a pretty significant amount away. But as far as like number 6 or whatever. But anyway, Kayan the Fire Vagabond, number 4 for the most wanted fire units. Number 3 on the list of most wanted second awakened fire units, Rebecca the Fire Mystic Witch. Again, I didn't think people cared this much about Rebecca, but a lot of people care about, a lot of people at least want her second awakened. Rebecca's actually like a budget Annabelle if you think about it. She's got a dot here, not really budget Annabelle. She's got a AoE defense break here, and then she has a cleanse here. So she's very much similar to Annabelle, like not quite as strong as Annabelle, but she's very, very similar to a budget Annabelle. Rebecca Fire Mystic Witch, 286 votes at number 3. Number 2 on the list, 337 votes. Again, I'm very surprised to see a list of Lucasia, the Fire Harpy. I mean, I could kind of analyze to see why I feel like it's on the list is probably because some people have at least one, maybe more of them built for Necropolis back in the day before the twins, before the second awakened Fire Origami's. This was a unit that a lot of people built for Necropolis because she's got a lot of multi-hits here, right? So I think maybe because a lot of people may just have her in storage, or possibly they want to see her being used a little bit more because she's pretty good for Windrift Beast because she's got a big DPS and she's got a fire attack power leader skill and she's fairly attainable to get and skill up, so she could potentially be like brutal in the Windrift Beast, right? So brutal in Necropolis. Could you imagine how crazy of a Necropolis teams if she was second awakened? It would be absolutely insane. Anyway, Lucasia second on the list. I think mostly just because people have like, handful of people have her built. 337 votes. And number 1 on the list for most wanted fire second awakenings, Kali the Fire Element. This is not a shock to me at all. I know how many people built Kali, so I'm like, this number 1, I can definitely see it. I'm not at the least bit surprised. But the thing is, if she gets a second awakening, first, her stats are going to, of course, get better, which is crazy because she's so good. But her skills are really not, like, they can't do too much to her skills. They really can't do too much to her skills because she's already invincible attack speed buff, attack power buff, and ignores defense. I'm glad to see, like, if they get a second awakening, I would love that because I have wanted a transmog for them for so long, and Comptos still has not done a transmog for them. So maybe second awakening is in the works. Who knows? Fire or high elemental though, not surprised. Number 1 on the list for fire. Let's go on to water now. On to the most wanted water second awakenings. Number 6 actually is very close to number 5. They're only 2 votes away. Number 6. Ramirez, the Water Harpy. Defense break, this got a stun, and this has a critical hit, always lands as a critical hit, but it's just single target, right? Not a very exciting unit. Again, I'm surprised to see these Harpies on the list. Like, the first, I get the Fire Harpy, but why is the Water Harpy? So many people voted for the Water Harpy. I don't know why. They voted. They voted for the Harpies, but people really love to see people really love these Harpies more than I guess I realized. I don't know. Another one that I'm kind of surprised to see on the list, Talk the Water Battle Mammoth, number 5. Only 2 votes away from number 6. That's why I wanted to include both of them, right? So Talk the Water Battle Mammoth. He is, I know that a decent amount of people, like more older players, built him back in the day. When he first came out, he was very, people were hyped about him because he was, that was back in the day, like when Camila was very popular too, right? So he's got a passive which decreases damage, mitigates some damage, and then he's got the provoke, he's got the heal and defense buff. So this passive was like back in the day. A lot of people that have been, like, were older players from like 5 years ago or whatever, 6 years ago, they have Talk built. Sometimes they still use him in Guild Siege situations, especially with like Copper and Bulldozer very strong in Guild Siege. But yeah, sometimes they use, or also the Water Frankenstein as well, right? So sometimes he's used in Guild Siege still to this day. But I think he may be just kind of on the list because more people have him built from previously. So anyway, Water Battle Mammoth, number 5 on the list with 227 votes. Number 4 on the list with 239 votes, Alan the Water Vagabond. Why? I don't know. I don't know why he's. I think maybe people just want to see the certain families, and they're maybe that's it, right? Maybe it's nothing more than that, and they're just like voting for each one of this. But like, oh, I really want to see the light and dark vagabonds, so I'm gonna click all the vagabonds. That could be the situation where they want to see that, and then they're just like selecting the ones in the different elements. So anyway, Alan the Water Vagabond, defense break. He's got this provoke, single target provoke. And he's got this: when your HP is lower than 30%, damage you receive is reduced by 50%. Another damage mitigation passive. Alan the Water. Nobody builds it. Who? I think 0 people watching this right now have ever built the Water Vagabond. 95% of the people watching this are like, I didn't even know Water had a Vagabond. Never. You may have passed by him in the magic shop, but that's about it. 239 votes. Alan the Water Vagabond. Never even bothered learning his name. Number 3 on the list, Water Grim Reaper, Hemos with 241 votes. Again, this is a unit that people had built from back in the day because he still kind of actually is good for TOA hard. He's got this, doesn't matter. He's got this continuous damage, AoE continuous damage, doesn't actually attack things. So he's really good for like the stages where you don't want to crit on the units, like for example Jolton and Ragdoll and things like that, right? So he's really good for those. And he's got this: decrease enemy's attack speed while freezing chills for 3 turns, freezes the enemy for 1 turn. But this is a unit, back in the day, it's like, oh, you gotta do TOA hard. Well, do the Dark Grim Reaper or the Water Grim Reaper if you don't have the Dark Grim Reaper, because Dark Grim Reaper has like multiple random hits that stuns. So the Water Grim Reaper is just one of those units that was. Nowadays, it's like everything is totally different. There's a lot of different units that do things like that he does, but there's a decent amount of people that have him 6-starred that have played back in the day, like. And it's just, he's there sitting in storage. They're like, yeah, I wouldn't mind getting a second awakened version of him. But if a second awakened version of him would be brutal in TOA hard, though. Just FYI. Number 3, 241 votes. Number 2, again, High Elemental on the most wanted water second awakenings. 331 votes. She's got the cross attack, continuous damage. No one cares about that. Really, no one cares about continuous damage for first skill. This is an ignore defense, which is crazy good. This is a 2-turn freeze. It's a single target though, single target freeze. It also does damage, does a decent amount of damage too. But she is like she's like Halia with the second skill. However, she doesn't do attack power buff and speed buff. That's why she's not as useful as Halia. She is pretty useful though. This ice prison is pretty underrated. Not bad. Single target. 2-turn freeze though, but would be cool to see a second awakened of Elena because I use her on the free to win. I actually have her built on the main now that I think about it. I have her built on the main too, and a fun unit. I used to use her back in the day, but yeah, it would be so cool to see second awakening high elementals. 331 votes. I would personally, I would love to see this myself. Number 1 on the list, I'm not surprised for this one either. Megan, the Water Mystic Witch, 378 votes for most wanted Water Second Awakenings. She's a unit that's very commonly used in arena offense and in even in RTA. Like sometimes Kali and Megan people use for like budget kind of cleave things. Of course, there's stronger versions of them. If you happen to have like the Nat 5s, but like for example, Megan's stronger version of hers, obviously Bastet. But a decent like if you don't have Bastet and you want to run a cleave, you can run a cleave with Megan. However, it's a little harder to cleave with some of these things, especially with like the base speed of 97, right? And this is actually less attack gauge increase than the Bastet, and there's no sustain because it's a defense buff too, but it's no sustain, it's no shield. It's just a not as strong version of Bastet. But this is like something we all built this back in the day. Some people still use it all the time, but we all built it back in the day. If you played Summoners War 5 years ago, you have a Megan. That's the fact, basically. One person's gonna be like, I don't have a Megan. Okay, you were the one person that doesn't have a Megan. But yeah, another one. I'm not surprised. People using her. A lot of people built her. People still using her for cleaves. She doesn't really do too much here and here. But if she gets too strong, then it's like, well, what do you need Bastet for? Just second awaken. That would be brutal, man. That would be really brutal. Number 1 on the list for water. Let's go on to wind next. Like I said, on to the most wanted wind second awakenings. Number 5. Actually, this is kind of switching things up. Wind Golem Rageon. I know you guys probably saw the Rageon nonsense that we were doing back in the day. Rageon's already good. Man, he'd be crazy with the second awakening, right? You can't use him everywhere because he's a wind unit that is defense based, and you know, wind units, there's a lot of fire threats on defense, and defense-based units, like, you can't put them on defense anywhere because, like, Lucian, Bulldozer, right? So he's basically non-existent on defense anywhere, and then you can't always use him on offense because there's so many fire threats, you know what I mean? So anyway, there's just other things that, because as far as his skills are actually not bad. First skill, stun and provoke the enemy. Harmful effect goes up quite a decent amount. Iron defense increases defense for 3 turns and gives you immunity against harmful effects. Additionally, your attack bar increases by 50%. This is better than it seems. He only has 1 turn. It's an 3-turn immunity and defense buff. It's only down for 1 turn. So there's only 1 turn in the middle for your enemies to like do something to you if you don't have it up. And then patrol passive decrease inflicted damage by 15% and counterattacks with 20% chance. So I have him on Vampire, and he's such a fun unit. He's just like such a brutal unit. If you could actually, like the few places that you can actually use him, he can do pretty well. He can actually do pretty well. But Rageon, 249 votes. Yes, please come to us. Please, Second Awaken Rageon. I can't wait. Oh, those would be so fun. Like some of those golems. I could definitely see them doing this too. Actually, Second Awakening the golems. Number 4 on the most wanted Wind Second Awakenings list, Cilia, the Wind Mystic Witch. You saw this one coming. From the Mystic Witches being on the other first 2 lists, you're like, I see a pattern. I'm going to say the Wind Mystic Witch is going to be on here for some reason. She's got this, continuous damage, whatever. She's got this AoE defense break, same as the fire one. And then she has this one. It's a single target, removing beneficial effects, disturbs HP recovery, and prevents the enemy from receiving any beneficial effects for 2 turns. It's kind of nice against Theomars, and a couple other units, but really not for too much, right? Like, I built her. I have her 6-star. I actually have her 6-star. I never remember she's 6-starred because she's really only useful in like very few situations. Theomars and Light Lich as well. She's useful in that, but really not too much. Cilia, the Wind Mystic Witch, number 4 on the list with 253. Yeah, 4 on the list, 253 votes. By the way, number 6 was Living Armor, Copper, 238 votes. And number 7 was, because they're kind of close, number 7 was the Wind Harpy with 233 votes. Just in case you guys are interested, if there's anything else close. Those two were kind of close to the number 5. Not that shocked. Number 3 on the list, Royd the Wind Vagabond, 255 votes. Of course, we saw the fire one, we saw the water one, we're going to see the wind one on here. People really want... You know what? This makes sense. This is very likely that Comtuous actually Second Awakenings him at... Yeah, two ways. It's very likely that they two-way him at some point. He's got the defense break, he's got the attack break, and then he's got this decreased attack age to 0 and provoke. Irresistible provoke. Attack deals more damage according to your max HP. He's an HP based unit. But he's a unit that you get first in the game. Like, he's one of those, he's here because the other Vagabonds are here. I'm short of it. Because I don't know very many people at all. I have one built, but I don't know anyone else that actually has a Royd built in the game. I could see some people building the Fire Vagabond. I'm pretty sure there's a few people that built the Fire Vagabond, but the Royd, I don't know who would have built this monster aside from me building him. I don't know who else would have actually legitimately done this. Is anyone surprised? Number 2, High Elemental, 291 votes for the most wanted wind, Second Awakenings. This one really needs something though. This one's really not anything special. She's got continuous damage here. She's got, this is not an ignore defense. This is a disturbs HP recovery and recovers 35% HP if the enemy dies. Not always, just if the enemy dies. And then this is concentrated attack. Attacks with an ally always lands a critical hit. But this is just, I mean, you compare this to Kali, there's no reason you'd build a Moria, and she's a wind unit at that, and again, there's a lot of fire threats on defense everywhere, so she's like, what are you gonna do with Moria? This one would need a lot, but, it needs a lot more. She needs a Second Awakening, she needs everything, she's a complete makeover. 2 on the list. 291 votes. Mav RKO out of nowhere, number 1 on the list. I mean, there's 2 ways about this. Number 1, Penguin Knight. Penguin Knights weren't even on the other list. But number 2, Mav is Mav, and so many people built Mav, right? So a lot of people built Mav for TOA, and therefore there is a lot of people that have Mavs built. Redundant. I just said the same thing twice. Anyway, that's why Mav is on the list. But number 1, 351 votes, where you didn't see the other Penguin Knights on any lists. It's just people really want Mav. Mav would be pretty cool monster to get second. He would be brutal though. If they Second Awaken Penguin Knights, that would be pretty brutal because he's already a good unit as far as that. And then he's got the provoke and he's got the stun here. But he's basically just used as a combo unit with other units that have strong skill 3s. He's also, by the way, Mav is actually used in the Rift Beast as well. You see Mavs with fight runes and a lot of Rift Beasts. Weirdly enough, because it just gives things more access to their stronger skills, their stronger like skill 3s. Anyway, Mav on the list, number 1 with 351 votes. On to the most wanted light Second Awakenings. Linda the Light Witch. I mean, you saw the Mystic Witches are in Fire, Water, Wind. You know Linda's gonna be in here, and you know the Dark One's gonna be in the Dark One because she's already, people put her in the buff list, so the Dark One's already gonna be on the list. I know that for certain. And then Linda, the Light Mystic Witch, let's take a look at what she does. She's got the continuous damage, she's got the defense break, AoE defense break, and then she has summons a comet to attack all enemies multiple times, casts soul protection on an ally with the lowest HP ratio, and the ally with the lowest... Oh, this is... I always thought this was 1 soul protection. This is 2 soul protections. I could have sworn this was just gives her 1 soul... Gives something 1 soul protection. Maybe it was changed at some point. I don't know. But anyway, she is number 5 on the list with 278 votes. I'm not at all surprised because she's a Mystic Witch, and I bet we're going to see Harpy, Vagabond, High Elemental. Let me see it. Harpy, Vagabond, High Elemental, and what else? I don't know. And something else. Remember how we said Harpy, High Elemental, Vagabond? Yeah, okay, none of those. Lynn, the Light Amazon, again, a unit that a lot of people have built. You were seeing a trend is units that a lot of people have built and have they're using or in storage or whatever. Can you imagine how much damage she's gonna do if she has, if she got a second awakening? It's like, you may as well just, like, she's got one-shot bosses, or what's the deal? She would be so brutal. And the Amazons could get a second awakening at some point. It's not like they're crazy or new, because they're trying to do older monsters instead of newer monsters. And the Amazons are not some of the newer Nat 3s or anything, right? And also they don't have like Nat 4 counterparts or anything. So it is possible for them to do the Amazons, but man, she already does crazy big damage. She's gonna do even crazier, bigger damage. She's gonna be like, if the enemy doesn't die from this, gets another turn and ignores defense. Like, what? The 288 votes though, Light Amazon, already a very strong unit. I cannot even imagine how strong she's gonna be with a second awakening if they decide to ever do that. You know what? I should have mentioned that these are both actually tied for, it says 4, but it's basically tied for 3/4, whatever you want to call it. Lynn and Groggo, the Light Golem, both tied. Both got 288 votes. So another really, really solid unit. Oh my god, he would be really brutal with a second awakening. Oh my god, he'd be really brutal. He already takes 5 hits to kill, right? Takes 5 hits to kill. We also have this first skill. It's the Stun and Provoke, which is really strong. Iron Defense, same as the Ragion does. But yeah, Groggo, I'm not surprised to see him. People have built him already, so he's a pretty solid unit. Pretty solid unit. I mean, can't get one shot, right? Can't get one shot, can't get 2 shot, 3 shot, 4 shot. Yeah, Groggo. He'd be very cool. He'd be very cool to play with when he gets this, if he gets a second awakening. Bagel Sipped, he said when he knows he works for Comptour. No, I meant if he gets a second. People are gonna look too much into that, aren't they? I know you guys look too much into it. If he gets a second awakening, he's gonna be a very cool unit. You knew who was gonna be here. Number 2 on the list for top 5 most wanted light units. Light Vagabond, 337 votes. He's got the defense break, he's got the attack power break, single target, and then he has knighthood passive, decreases damage, all other. This is another unit, again, he's the same thing. A lot of people have him built, a lot of people have him in storage. They want to see him get a second awakening because he's something that they don't have to build, that they can just dust off big. Oh, Light Vagabond, we're going to dust you off, and then we're going to bring you out into some RTA or Guild Wars or whatever, or Arena Defense. Oh, could you imagine if this got strong? This would be too OP if it got stronger. How are they going to buff him? What is he going to do? Cleanse things too? If you get hit by a critical hit, cleanse all the allies. That's terrible. Comptours, don't do that. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. You guys are like, no, Comptours, do it. Do it, yes. Yes, do it, please. 337 votes. Number 2 on the light list. Number 1 on the light list is Shren, the Light High Elemental. Already a good unit, though. And here's the thing, though. We didn't see the Harpies. We didn't see the Grim Reapers. Harpy had 200. Harpy would have been number 6 at 257. Grim Reaper would have been number 7 at 245 votes for those units. They were very close. I'm surprised. You know what? It's actually, I'm surprised that the Light Harpy is not on the list because, well, I mean, she'll be too OP. She's already arena offense god, right? 120 base speed. Like Grim Reaper, I'm surprised the Light Harpy actually is not higher. I'm surprised. I feel like the Light Harpy should have been in the Golem spot, or I would have figured that the Light Harpy would have been in the Golem spot. Anyway, Shren, Light High Elemental. She's got the ignore defense here, really nice. And then she has this cleanses. And also evens out HP ratio. And then both monsters are healed by 25% max HP after that. She's actually a unit that you can already use. So she's a decent unit for Guild Wars and Guild Siege already. Not really anything too wrong with her. Really, the Wind and the Dark High Elementals are the ones that really need buffs. Because these units are already good. This is potentially like really, really brutal. If this gets a second awakening, oh my god, that is very scary. That is very scary to see these get second awakenings. But 345 votes for number one most wanted on the light list. On to the top dark monsters that people want to see Second Awakenings for. Dark Vagabond, he's actually, we knew that Vagabond, he's got to be on the list somewhere. He was pretty close to number 5, that's why I'm including him. Number 6, 276 votes. He's got this defense break, he's got a provoke, and then he's got this one, decrease chance of receiving a critical hit by 50%, and decreases the cooltime of your skill each time you're attacked. Which means he can basically kind of unlimited provoke. Which is kind of scary. It's kind of, but you don't really see him too much because Light Paladin, right? Light Paladin's taking his spot. He was kind of annoying back in the day if you build him like really tanky. But I think if I recall correctly, he's, because I have him built on my main, of course I have everything built. But I think his base HP is not anything too crazy, and it was hard to get him very fast, plus tanky, plus good accuracy, and all the stats that he really needed to shine. But I have seen him used pretty effectively in some places though. But anyway, Jubel number 6 with 276 votes. He was really close to number 5, and then everything else after him was not close as far as like number wise to 276. So that's why I include him there. Number 5 on the list. I knew he was going to be on here, but I kind of figured he might have been even higher actually. Number 5 on the list with 282 votes. Basalt, the Dark Battle Mammoth. He's got the... You know what Basalt does. I don't have to explain to you what Basalt does. He's... Maybe new players. I don't know. He's got the Provoke here. He's got an attack power buff... not attack power buff. He's got a heal and defense buff. And then he also has this AoE, decreases enemies' attack gauge. Does damage based on his defense. Not bad damage, but not super insane, like, nuke damage either, right? But I actually used him... I used him on crit damage build, and... a while ago, like a couple years ago, and people were like, what is your Basalt build? Why is he killing things? I'm like, oh, he's on crit damage. But anyway, he is, what is he? Number 5 on the list, 282 votes. Number 4 on the list with 289 votes, Halia the Dark Harpy. So we saw the Water Harpy. We saw the Wind Harpy almost made it to the top 5 list. We saw the Water, we saw the Fire. We saw the Light one. Where was the Light one? Oh, the Light was on 6 on the list. The Wind was 7 on her respective list. Yeah, and then the Dark Harpy. I mean, these are actually units that may be Second Awakened though. These Harpies. So it's crazy to think the Light Harpy getting a Second Awakened, but it's entirely possible that these eventually get a Second Awakenings. But Halia the Dark Harpy, she's got defense break, she's got stun here, and then she has a defense break and brand. Already pretty ridiculous for the 3rd skill. She's a unit that is, I mean, defense break and brand, that's basically like saying like setting something up to do its maximum amount of damage is this. A lot of people run her on triple fight sets. Just FYI for like how to ruin the Dark Harpy. A lot of times triple fight sets, attack or damage attack with 3 fight sets just to make whatever else you have with your team do as much damage as humanly possible. 289 votes, number 4. Here we are up to number basically tied for 2 and 3 spots. 2 and 3, the same exact votes, 293 votes on each of them. Dark Grim Reaper, a unit that again a lot of people built for TOA hard. He's got the 1st skill, acquires additional turn if the enemy dies, but they don't really build him for damage. They build him for just because he does damage. For TOA hard, he does damage through continuous damage. He's doesn't need to be like super DPS heavy. He just needs to be fast and accuracy, right? And on Violent, he gets a lot of dots on Violent, right? Doomsday Meteorite. So he's the same as Hemos, the water one. So we're seeing these Grim Reapers on a few different lists. It'd be crazy to see a Grim Reaper Second Awakening, though. That'd be awesome. Doomsday has so many of them built. Meteorites of Doomsday fall on the enemies and inflicted damage increases with time. Stuns the enemy for 1 turn if the enemy is under continuous damage. So he's again a unit that people were using for TOA hard. If you didn't have Thrain, you would use Hemos for TOA hard back like a few years ago when TOA hard first came out. But 293 votes, tied basically for spot 2 on the list, 2 and 3. And the other one tied for number 2/3 on the list, Gina the Dark Mystic Witch. We already talked about her and the dark monsters that need buffs. I'm not surprised that she's on here. Everyone wants well, I think it's the Megan effect, though. I really do. I think it's the Megan effect of why people are voting for the rest of the Mystic Witches. They're like, Megan, but you know, I'd also like to see the rest of the Mystic Witches get buffed. So, Megan, Grim Reapers, Mystic Witches, Vagabonds, who else? Harpies, and I don't remember who the last one was. Oh, and high elementals, right. Those are generally the ones that people want to see the most. Just in general, that's the recap of the whole video. I wonder who number one could be. But Gina, she's basically budget. Hathor. I've said it a million times. We don't really need to go over her, Gina. You know what she did. We already did Gina, how bad Gina is in several videos. We know how bad she is. Let's move on to number one. Who saw this coming? I mean, really, who saw this coming? Number one for the most wanted dark element, Second Awakenings. Jomline, the high elemental, again, is just people want the high elementals just in general. Same thing, 324 votes on this. Yeah, she's legitimately like, yeah, how do you... I kind of want to build some of these units, and then I'm like, I'm not going to be able to make this work, right? She just... Compared to, like, the fire one... Compare to Shren, compare to Kali, because those you can just build. Elena even you can build, right? But the wind and the dark ones, man. What the heck are we going to do with those? The other one, the ignore defense ones? Oh my god, they're going to do... So, if they get a Second Awakening, they're going to do so crazy. They're going to be so good. But these, the wind and the dark ones, they really, people are not building them. Or I've seen people build like the wind and dark ones. To test them out, and then they don't use them because it's like, why would I use them? Why would I use this monster? I built it. That was my first mistake, and I'm not gonna make the mistake of actually using this now. I tried it once, it doesn't do very good. Just because the other ones are so good, right? Just because the light one, the fire one, the water one, ignore defense is so OP. You don't need the setup of like defense break and then you just bypass. You know this game. Ignore defense is so OP, right? So anyway, some of these monsters, some of these high elementals, if they get Second Awakenings, even just the base stats of ignoring more defense, they're just gonna make them crazy. But anyway, guys, that's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it. Top 5 Second Awakenings for each different, most wanted Second Awakenings for each different element. We saw a lot of the same stuff. There was some things missing based on the lists. Of like the Yetis and like the Harpoos. I feel like the Harpoos might actually have been maybe some of them on the list if we actually put them in, but that's my fault for just copying the old form, or the old, using the old template basically. So anyway, we'll see what actually gets Second Awakenings hopefully sometime soon. Anyway, that's it for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you as always in the next one.